Hello, today we're going to begin building the Subaru BRZ. First, let's take a look at what's inside the kit. As you can see, the body and a bunch of the other pieces are molded in blue, which is very fitting of the Subaru. On a separate tree, we have all the clear parts, which are molded perfectly. Following that, we have a tree with the front bumper, hood, a bunch of chassis components, which are molded in blue. Then following that, we have a bunch of the suspension components, wheels, and other components molded in black. And on this final tree, we have some more chassis components, more body components, and the interior, which is molded in black. And finally, we have 4 rubber tires, some chrome pieces, and window masking. Now we can move over to starting this body. The first thing that needs to be installed on the body are the side splitters, rear bumper, front bumper, and trunk add-on piece. To do this, I'm just using a toothpick and some super glue. One thing that's very nice about this kit is everything fits very perfectly and lines up easily, which is perfect and I don't have to do any adjustments. Another thing that's very nice about this body is that there are no mold lines, which is something that I start to see on most of newer Tamiya kits. With assembly out of the way, I can move over to sanding down the body, and to do this, I'm using some 800 grit sandpaper. Coming from factory, I think this car looks pretty good, but in my personal opinion, I don't think it looks as aggressive as it should. And a way to add aggression is by adding some aero, so I decided I'm going to go ahead and create some side splitters and a front lip. To do this, I'm using some 0.3mm styrene sheet, and I'm tracing around the shape of the side skirts that basically I want the side splitter to be, and I decided to finally round off the edge using a Dremel, which completes the side skirts. As you can see with the final product of the side splitter, I think using a thicker styrene material definitely gives more of a complete fuller look compared to a very thin styrene splitter, which doesn't really fit in my opinion. With the side splitter out of the way, I can move over to doing basically the same process with the front lip. With the body being ready for paint, the last thing that needs to be prepared are the windows. And to do this, I'm applying the window masking that is supplied by the kit, which does fit perfectly and is very simple to apply. This is the first kit that I've ever built that actually has window masking for the front headlights, which I think is a nice addition because it makes it a lot easier to get that black window trim, and I think it's definitely something a lot more kits should do. And after putting this window masking onto the front windshield, we can now move over to painting. On the recent GTR build video, a viewer commented that I should switch over to using Tamiya lacquer paints as they're basically all around better. And I decided to go ahead and take this advice. So to paint this body, we're using Tamiya LP47 Pearl Blue. I hit the body with 3 coats, and upon the first coat, I quickly realized that this paint is just nice. It's a whole lot shinier, there's a whole lot more sparkles, and it is a whole lot sturdier. Moving over to the second coat, most of the scratches that were visible from the sanding at this point were initially gone, and I basically went for full coverage, a little bit heavier than the first coat. Moving over to the third and final coat, I basically followed the same process as the first 2 coats and made sure that the body was entirely even, not that there were any heavier spots than the other, and that completed the painting process for the base color. With painting the body out of the way, I can move over to painting the window masking black. And to do this, I'm using Tamiya X1 Black. I set the body aside to let it dry for 24 hours, and as you can see, this is what the paint finish came out like. Not too much orange peel and all around relatively shiny. With this out of the way, we can move over to masking and painting some of the black accents that are on the roof and the rear trunk. To do this, I'm using some Tamiya masking tape and a fresh X-Acto blade, and I'm basically just cutting around the edges of the roof. With the body fully masked off, we can move over to painting the roof and the accent on the trunk using the exact same black that we used for the window masking. And after removing the masking, this is the final result. The acrylic paints from Tamiya are definitely a lot harsher in the finish, and I definitely should move over to using a lacquer black, but I now know this and I'll use that for the next build. With the painting out of the way, before we can add clear coat to the body, a bunch of decals need to be added. This piece on the side fender, I decided that I wanted to go ahead and make it carbon fiber, and to do this, I'm making a template using some Tamiya tape and a carbon fiber decal, which I'll leave the link to in the description. To get these carbon fiber decals to actually stick onto the body, it's a very simple process. I first use a toothpick to move it into its place just to not scratch the paint. Then I dry it a little bit using a cotton swab, and then use a lighter to heat it up just to make sure that it actually sticks to the body. Then I take an X-Acto knife using a fresh blade and cut on the panel line, and then use a toothpick to remove the excess, carefully doing this to make sure I don't scratch the body. And after that, the decal is fully on there. Now we can move over to finishing up all the decals that remain, starting with the emblems on the front and the rear bumper. Fortunately, there's a metallic backing for the emblems that basically makes it a lot more reflective. Whenever I put the decal onto the emblem, for some reason it's not that shiny in the camera. I'm not sure if it's the lighting, but in person it is really shiny. Following the front bumper, I go ahead and move over and do the exact same thing to the rear bumper. While we're at the rear, we can go ahead and add the third brake light, which is a decal, and we don't have to go ahead and paint it red ourselves, which I think is a very nice touch. Finally, we can go ahead and add the license plate, which is the final piece of detail that needs to be added to this body. With the detailing out of the way, we can now move over to clear coating the body, and to do this, I'm using Mr. Color GX100, the go-to. I hit the body with 3 coats, the first one being a relatively misty coat just to make sure that the entire body ends up getting clear coated. And all in all, I think I'm getting better at using this clear coat as I'm seeing less and less imperfections, and I am starting to see the results that I want. Moving over to part 2, I did the exact same process as the first coat, except a little bit heavier, as you can see. All in all, I am struggling to get no orange peel, but I will keep practicing. Moving over to the third and final coat, I hit the body with another heavy layer of the clear coat, and with that out of the way, that wraps up part 1 of this video. Thank you for watching. Deuces.